Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the show.
That's right. Welcome to the show. I don't know if you ever reached the Baseball Tonight podcast. It was one of the things, they had all these different things, and when they had this guy, Dave Schoenfeld, on, they created a whole intro. Welcome to the show. So, welcome, everyone. It's good to have you with us, and as Lois started to join us. So first thing, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there coming up this weekend, and all the fathers, expectant fathers as such, ones that will become fathers not too long from now, maybe. So,
and I want to say, if you're thinking about this and you haven't done it, benefit that no one talks about of having kids is that they're hilarious. It keeps you laughing your entire life, right? Because they, for one thing, like they go make all the same mistakes you made, and like you can see it coming. You can just watch them go over the ledge, and it's like, if it's a bad one, you stop it, of course, but they do funny stuff and they say funny stuff, and there are people, and it's like, I'm not going to get to be president in this lifetime, right? It's kind of gone past, right? But my kids could become something, and that's kind of your legacy. It's a completely worthwhile, fun endeavor.
Yeah, and it's a learning experience too, being a father, a parent, because a lot of us, will look at our own parents and say, why did they do that? They were so mean, or they did this, or they did that. A lot of times we will harp on some of the things that we felt that they did were wrong, or they mistake. Then we get to be parents, the shoe's on the other foot, and you're like, okay, where's the manual? How do we do this? You realize how difficult it can be. You're right. There's a heck of a lot of fun. There are so many blessings that come out of being a dad, and a parent. But it's something that you learn. You go along with it. Your kids have different personalities. They don't necessarily mimic you, but they will in some things. You can see some of the same behaviors as yourself talking about. And hopefully, we did a good enough job that we set them up, for future success. That, like you and I, lots of things have passed us by. Things won't happen to us in our lifetime, but our kids still have opportunities to do other things that we did not. I don't even know if I really aspired to anything, but it is what it is, and maybe my kids have aspired to more. So it. I never saw my daughter, for example, having 7 children. Okay, that was not that was not on my scorecard here at all. I was like, how did that happen?
Has she figured out what's causing it?
Yeah, when you marry someone who's one of, I think, 9 kids or whatever, they're not going to get to 9, but I think 7 is plenty. She is. She's quite the champ in that, and her husband is, absolutely marvelous with all our grandchildren. So I will say this, and you'll get to experience this at some point in time too, because your kids are still a little bit younger than mine, is that, when you get to be a grandfather and you watch your children raise their children, it's really fascinating. And it's really heartwarming. I mean, just to see that. I mean, hopefully they pick up a few things maybe they found something worthwhile that I did along the way, but I'm like, okay, they're doing okay. They figured this out. So yeah,
I remember I called my sister. She has 2 kids, and I'm like, what do you do with these things? Right? And she's like, you love them and you listen to them, and the rest of it works itself out in an amazing fashion. And she was right.
Yeah, and see, being an only child, where am I turning to? My wife has had she had siblings, but I think we had our kids first. It was pretty close. Maybe her brother. Her brother got married later, I think so. So anyway, if you want to ask for advice, from a sibling, she was at least when we started out, there would be a few years before her siblings got married and had their own children, to where you could talk about what do you do about these kids doing that. And I think that's a nice thing to have too with siblings, is that you can talk to each other about, hey, how do you do this? And but as you said,
Yeah.
you love them, you nurture them, you do these things. What is good for her kids is not necessarily the same for your kids.
Right.
So anyway, all right. So that's one thing down. Number two, it is National Fudge Day. Bueno no bueno. I'm kind of like
So we make it at the Christmas. It's kind of weird. Why is it in June? Doesn't the fudge melt in June?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's some messy stuff when it starts melting. I will say that. That is one of those almost uncleanable messes,
Yeah.
But my sister makes it. She makes it with the marshmallow, stuff and all that.
And, maybe she makes them with shrooms.
I'd have gotten a little more out of them if that was. But like she makes some with pecans, right? We grew up with big pecan trees in our front yard and our backyard, and so that she puts pecans in some of them and not in some of it, because people like both.
Now Stephanie Stuckey does she not tell us to pronounce it pecan?
I don't know who Stephanie Stuckey is, but
did you ever see any Stuckey's
restaurants?
Yeah, restaurants. She is like the granddaughter of the founder.
Oh, okay.
And you don't see much of those anymore. They kind of went out. She found a financial partner, and they've been reviving the brand, not for the stores, but for all the different kinds of pecans, and things like that. So she's trying to get them into as many stores as she can. So she has if you follow her on social media, it's like road trip throughout America, trade shows, all this kind of stuff. But I think she says pecan.
She's wrong. Oh no, can't help you there. It's
Georgia
pecan
versus Louisiana. Okay.
The people who have the trees, they kind of know. You learn that.
I've always said pecan, so. but I'm not a Southerner, right? So. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fudge. I like fudge, but I also think that it can be very sweet. So sometimes sometimes it can be a little. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's too sweet. I can't eat it today. But I will gravitate towards stuff like that, because it's just, you get it right. It's like, oh, it's so good. Wasn't there a place in the malls that just made fudge all the time?
Yeah, there was.
I can't remember the name of the place now. My brain is old and fuddy-duddied out, but as I kind of recall, you'd go there and they'd have the open kitchen, and they do a lot of entertaining, and they show you them making the fudge and doing all this crazy stuff and all that kind of stuff. Memories of my younger days.
Lori loves the fudge and the fudge stores and all that.
Yeah. All right. No problem.
Get out of trouble with here's some fudge.
All right. So, since we've had this memorandum of understanding being put together here by the Trump administration and Iran, and the document is now, I guess it's officially out. I think it leaked out initially, but I think I'm seeing more reports in the media. I mean, I kind of looked at it.
Well, I think what's out in the media is not what was officially signed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not officially signed. I think it's a draft document. It's not the final.
They have signed something, and the thing that everybody's going around talking about is, I've talked to two people at the White House this morning and said that's not what we're working under. So
yeah, well,
I think this is one of those deals, and Trump has done this before, where he gives 9 or 10 different pieces of paper, right, to people, and whichever one ends up in the press where it wasn't supposed to be, and so he knows who his leakers are. So this could be a leaker test, but it's kind of hard to talk about it because you don't really know which one of these was real. Andrew Kovac put something out in the last 30, 45 minutes that attempts to address some of this. So.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, the one I looked at the Wall Street Journal, No, I mean it's that document isn't horrible, but it definitely is more favorable to Iran than it is to the U.S. position on what we were trying to achieve. Now, once again, it, I think they've labeled this a draft, so this is just a working paper from their perspective. I think in terms of this, I hope that the final document is very different because we definitely we definitely want to have more control over ending their nuclear weapons and arms programs, and we want to make sure that we have a little more control. And we want we'd like to see regime change. We didn't go through all this just to see the mullahs just kind of continue on and repress people and do all this stuff. But if we get the Strait of Hormuz really fully open, get oil flowing again, that'll be a good thing. We are seeing, as just to report that there was some kind of understanding between the two countries. you know, uh, the stock market had a big sigh of relief and has been doing pretty well this week so far. So,
But
from my
gas,
perspective,
oil down in the 70s, low 70s per barrel again.
yeah, and so gas prices are dropping.
Right, and they're going to keep dropping, and they're going to drop a long way because the Treasury Secretary has said that as soon as something happens and they go up, you guys raise them. So as soon as something happens and they go down, I'm going to be watching to make sure that you lower them. So
yeah, but I think they're still going to have I think there's still the supply issue. I mean, we you know we
well, I mean, we don't have a supply issue. We have all we need.
Supplies are getting tight around the world, though. I mean, this whole delay, all this stuff here since how many days are we up to now? Where am I here? 110. Has choked off a lot of supply around the world. Yeah, I mean, but so we're doing okay. I'm going to just continue to watch the price of gas. But
Yeah.
I appreciate paying what I paid the other day, $3.67 at a marathon. AAA says the average price of gas is 402, 403, down from 450 a month ago. So it's moving in the right direction. It's still, like I have said, and I think we're kind of in agreement, it's still way too high in conjunction with the election. When people's psyche and their feelings about how they're doing, we got to keep pushing that price back down to the three.
That's right. It's a key that it's some velocity too. It can't go down a penny a gallon for a week, right?
Right.
And so but I believe that if it stays down in the 70s, then you're going to see prices come way down because they need to regenerate that summer travel demand, right? Because like now, a lot of people were saying when it was 460 or whatever, we're going to have no summer trip or vacation or a less vacation, and now people rechange their plans and go big on vacation again. That'll be a huge economic boost to the country. Get a lot of money being spent in all kinds of boutique industries that kind of only exist for that purpose. So the price of gas powers everything. So the price of fuel comes down, the economy will flourish, all of inflation will come down. It's all dependent on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be. We hope that a lot of these things will come down. Now, there's some things that may take a while to come down because they're going to be under their own supply constraints and everything like that. Beef and chicken. We just got some chicken this morning, and my wife was saying, it's up about 80 cents a pound since the last time. And this is for the boneless, skinless thing at Costco. So it has been creeping up and up and up, and obviously beef prices are kind of out the wazoo. But even I've been drinking, like it makes a big difference in my life, right? But I drink. I have a protein powder that I use a few days a week, and it's stayed fairly stable. And Costco is usually about the best place to get it once they start. The price in the last few weeks has gone up like $10, and now that's like a 15% increase. All of a sudden, it has never climbed that fast in such a short period of time. I don't think that one's necessarily going to come down. I don't know what all the ingredients are, in terms of all of that, and I don't know how much transportation plays a part in that. But I'm not convinced that that particular item, there are going to be certain items that bump up, go up, and they probably have just reached a new level of where that's your new base. Your sales from going forward, if you're going to knock it down, have a special sale, will be from that level, and now your sale price will be closer to the old price before the sale. We've seen that time and time again, but at least it's moving in the right direction. We need that, to happen, to bring the cost of goods down, bring the price of gas down, in order for people need to feel, it's what people feel a lot of times in terms of, and how it affects some of the electorate, when they decide to cast their ballot, whether it be by mail or in person or whatever. They're looking at their bank account and say, am I keeping above water, or am I falling behind here a little bit? So it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully that also will have a very rapid effect on jet fuel prices, because airline tickets have just gone way up, and that crimps summer travel and has a domino effect, in the economy too. So uh, keep it going, people. Let's end this thing. Let's get those prices down some more, and then we won't be talking about how Trump loves inflation, which I don't understand why he said that.
Well, I mean, I think JD, there's one thing, I guess. Did you watch any of Vance on The View yesterday?
No.
So, he really didn't do a very good job, because they asked him these questions, and he had answers to the questions, right? It wasn't that they flummoxed him, right? It's that, he goes into these long-winded explanations of stuff, and they don't let you do that, right? They bump you, they hit you with another question, and you never get to the end of your story, right? So he had about 5 or 6 stories he started to tell, that were kind of key to the cases he was trying to make. He never got to tell, because he had long setups before they would get into what he was trying to say, and they heard the setup and they moved on, right? Which is, in their format, you can't let somebody, go on 5-minute stem winders. I don't blame them, right? They just handled it like they handled it. But he didn't really do a very good job. He seemed to have the answers, but not be able to deliver them. And what was the original thing we were talking about was on The View. What were we talking about before that?
We're just talking about, why Trump loves inflation.
Well, that was one of the things he was asked about, and he's like, what he's saying is he loves that it's up, so that everybody's going to be able to see that it comes down when all this ends, right? It's not his fault, and so forth. But he barely got that out after about a 20-minute build up to it, So JD has to get more prepared for that kind of. I guess he doesn't do a lot of interviews in that kind of format before, where you got to spit out quick answers. Most of the people who have him, they're fine with long form, because, you're more likely to make a mistake, say something really, really damaging, right? If you get to talk all you want. So, but that didn't happen yesterday. He didn't really get any trouble, but didn't really get anything accomplished either, because he wasn't really ready.
Yes, JD. Isn't anybody giving you talking points, which are short?
He was given some talking points, and I'm aware of who gave him those talking points and so forth. But he his style is to tell things in the context of a big story. Well, if you look back 20 years, we don't want to look back 20 years. What's your answer to the question?
Yeah, look, if he's going to run for president 2028, you can have those things in your back pocket. Reagan was a masterful storyteller, and he wove that in, and it worked just fine. It doesn't work for everybody. But
right. The other thing, if you look at Reagan's stories, right, he tells these stories. He's a storyteller. They're very quick. They're about 3 sentences, and you get right to your laugh line, and you understand the point of the whole thing very quickly, very few words. He was a really good editor, and I think JD's obviously got some editing abilities too. He's written 2 pretty successful books, one of which they made a movie out of, and but he likes to hear himself talk, and that's not really the format for that.
Yeah, well, you can get into a lot of trouble and just kind of get drowned if if you really just kind of like the sound of your own voice and want to listen to yourself talk. Is like you need to retrain yourself because you know
Yeah, because these people are vipers and they're looking for, they want to make their point. They're not interested in your answer to the question anyway, right?
and they're not even the most vicious of the liberal media out there. Okay, I mean, they're you're going to run into bigger buzz saws than these
Right,
these these people on the View. If you're going to go on a national campaign and run for president of the United States,
right.
you've got to be better prepared. He still has some time, obviously, and he hasn't made an official decision yet. But you've got to do a lot more there because I mean I think Marco Rubio is also a very viable candidate, and I think he probably does a better job in a
He
lot of
does a better
cases
job in this kind of
dealing
setting
with.
for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I agree.
So that's a guy that has just he's waiting. I think he will defer to JD Vance if necessary, but I think he's anxiously waiting and seeing whether or not there's an opportunity for him to run and become the front runner instead. So we shall see. But see, I mean, I understand, because the whole thing about Trump, it's high. He likes it because he can tell. But the only problem will be is that, it was somewhat under control. We were getting it moving lower. You go after Iran, to get rid of this regime and get control of the nuclear, assets and things like that. And as the part of the fallout is that inflation comes along with it because of energy prices that pushes up food prices because food it costs money to move food. So it's disingenuous to actually really believe that I love inflation because I'm going to show you how I can bring it back down. Well, your efforts, your policies drove it up and back down. We
Yeah,
just want
but
we
I
just want
mean,
we just
I
want
want
we just want it
I
down
want
from the
Iran
previous.
dead in the water. So
We want
I've
it
said
down
all
from the
along I could live with that.
Yeah, we want it down. We want it down in that 3% range or less, which seems to be somewhere near the floor for the time being. Of that, it gets hard to get much below three. Maybe 2.7.
Well,
Um,
he was at 2.5 before all this started. So
so,
it's a
so
doable deal and the fundamentals are better now. It's just a matter, it's just going to take a little bit of time. The problem with what Trump has done is, the election's in November. The opinions harden pretty soon after Labor Day. It's hard to move a whole lot of votes, in the last 4 to 6 weeks of the campaign. So if you're going to improve the economy, I mean, it needs to be somewhere in the twos by Labor Day, and gas needs to be somewhere in the twos by Labor Day. Right. If you're back down to that, then, you can't really make that an issue anymore. Then, the Democrats will be hollering about the Epstein files or whatever, and they'll lose. Right. You got to remember all the voter registration trends are in favor of the Republicans. They've added about 4.5 million vis-a-vis the Democrats, about 4.5 million voter registration. So, they've got things that, Cook Political Cook Political Report, which is not, conservative by any means, has them at 216 for sure safe seats for GOP. So you got to win 2 out of 18 to control the House. So, it's possible to lose all 18, but it's not really likely, especially if Trump has the economy recovered by then.
right. I mean, and it's late. Yeah, you have to have these things. I think you're right about the point in time where you've got to get these things down for people because by it won't be much longer after Labor Day in a lot of places where certain voting starts to take place. Just a few weeks after that, we start getting into late September, early October. Because it's basically you get that point in time, people are going to start casting ballots, and then early voting comes in. And
Right.
so if you don't have your economic figures where they need to be, you're going to have some problems. Yeah, it's good to have Republicans have a registration surge, but Republicans are not immune to, economic ailments and things like that, and they will, some of them may drift if they don't feel that they're getting, what they need to be getting either. So this is, the economy of inflation, gas prices. This is an issue that doesn't just affect, say the lower income voters that tend to sway Democrat. It's also going to affect those that that vote Republican. Republicans have made some pretty good strides with some blue collar people, and so they get affected too. And so you've got to get that narrative in effect with that, because the Democrats are, they're trying to use affordability, but I think that's a disingenuous argument the way they argue it.
They're not trying to be affordable either. So
no, I mean, there are plenty of Democrats out there that say that, and then they immediately vote for higher taxes. So forget that.
Right. And you can't, you can't really discern what they want, except for,
more and I don't, the Epstein files, look, it should have been handled a lot better, but I don't, I don't see how you really make a long-standing campaign issue out of that. I don't have a big...
people have decided Trump not implicated. They always mention 80 times, million times, whatever. And I think people say, okay, but you can't link him to doing any crimes. And the other thing about the Epstein files is this: you really can't link anybody, right? That evidence, if there's evidence there of crimes, which we don't even know that there is, of what we haven't seen, which we've supposedly seen all of it. One of the other things Vance said on there is that the stuff that's not been put out, almost all of it is duplicates of stuff that have been put out. Okay, so be that as it may, whatever, the whole purpose, the point of Epstein files is to get Trump, and they're not going to be able to get Trump with it because he didn't do it. There's just no evidence that he did. All the victims say he didn't. All the news organizations looked into it, say he didn't. All the DOJs say he didn't. Also, all those DOJs, from Obama forward, Obama, Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2, all those people have this information, and nobody charged anybody with a crime. So how do you think you're going to charge people with crimes now, 10, 12 years later, from when you've had the information 12 years and you haven't done anything with it? Right. That information is not possibly, got a chain of custody attached to it that would make it, usable in a court case. Right. So no one, the idea that at some point we're going to have the list of people who did this and we can try them all and put them all in prison is not going to happen. I don't think anyone will ever be charged. They got Maxwell, right? They had evidence on her because she was directly dealing with him. But they're never going to charge anybody else because the evidence is compromised and it's not clear what it says anyway.
Yeah, and they also thought they had a big campaign issue, I think, in ICE. But
yeah.
I think after Minnesota and the changes that have been made since then, ICE is not grabbing the headlines, but they're remaining in Democrat, ads, right? David Trone, he weaves that and reproductive rights into his ads as he's trying to beat April Delaney. And it's like, well, I think if you look at it now, you think, the immigration issue is in really pretty good shape, thanks to the president. Right. And ICE is not, they're not grabbing the headlines like they do. They go about and they're doing their work, but they're not taking the headlines. And so, that as a wedge issue doesn't really work. I would think that the majority of Americans probably should be very happy with the way immigration control, has happened now. The policy has changed for the better.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that that is one of the few issues that's totally pro-Trump, right? The polling on it is solid. People don't think they went too far. They like the idea of the border closed. They like the idea of you having to follow the rules to get in. And, all of that has come to play. As you say, ICE, they're out of the headlines for, they're busting heads, right? They're still going places and arresting people, even in Minneapolis, but they've done it. And also, one of the things Trump did when all this was going on last winter was he forced the Minnesota sheriffs to honor the detainers, right? So you arrest somebody who's illegal in Minnesota, you know, they've all agreed, you know, please don't go after us. We will call you every time we have one of these guys and let you take them. So, you know, Minnesota's become a cooperating state, and they are cleaning a lot of people out of Minnesota and a lot of fraud out of Minnesota. There's a long way to go, but they were forced kind of to cooperate. So, you know, people can see that, like like in Charlotte, you know, with ICE went into Charlotte for one weekend. The next week, enrollment in Charlotte schools decreased by 1/3. Okay, so a third of the kids in the school were there illegally, right? A third of your school budget is going to educate kids that don't belong in the country to start with. You know, you say, well, it's not the kids' fault. It's not, but it's the you know, that doesn't change who has to pay for it and why and how, right? So, you know, enforcing these laws is saving communities money. That they can't argue that, you know, Charlotte schools aren't going to be in better shape by losing a third of their students, and, you know, most of whom require a variety of special ed services one way or the other, right? Title I services. So, you know, it's not just, you know, 28 kids in a classroom and one teacher you're paying there. It's all kind of specialists and whatnot, you know, to bring non-English speakers up to speed and so forth.
So, you know, I've mentioned this numerous times. You know, I'm on next door with the surrounding neighborhood. I mean, it's a fairly big, wide swath of people that are in this thing. So, because it goes for several neighborhoods, not just my local one. But every once in a while, you get somebody post something like, ICE is over here, you know, like this with a little picture or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so what's the big deal? You know, particularly in an area, you know, when you're in Montgomery County, when you're in the state of Maryland, when you're in a place where there are restrictions, where there's basically says, we will, you know, the police, we will, you know, that are in there saying, police will not cooperate with ICE. So, right. Okay. So that's, you know, the police aren't going to cooperate with ICE because of these laws and whatnot, you know, that have been passed by the state or you know, the local laws and whatever these they want to call them. So, you know, if ICE is around, what's the big deal? And, you know, is there some problem with ICE just trying to check your status, your legal status, to see if you're in this country legally or not? I mean, exactly what is wrong with that?
That's right. And, you know, the Democrats are trying to make like it's going to happen in the election. Right? They'll be out there checking IDs on the election. Okay. If you're a citizen, that's not a problem. You know, also these mail-in things, Trump has gotten court approval now. So if you request a mail-in ballot in this cycle, you know, it's mailed in an envelope. The post office only handles them in this certain way. It has a return envelope, must come in that return envelope. So they've got it controlled where, you know, randos cannot just get tons of ballots and make them out and turn them in. It's like you get one ballot, you make your one ballot out and you turn it in, and we know who you are. We know where it came from. And, you know, you might request more, but you're not getting more, right? That's you're cut off after one. And that's really, you know, he's messing with the mail. It's like, yeah, that's where the ballots come. You know, that's where the corruption is. If you're not trying to cheat, it's not a problem. But they are trying to cheat, and they are realizing that a lot of the doors that they have used to cheat are being shut. Right, the USAID money, you know, they're on I think you will see whatever they know in Fort Pierce pretty soon about which is another game changer people don't know. So this conspiracy against rights case against Trump, you know, they haven't indicted. I mean, again, conspiracy against rights, taking Trump's rights as president, right? He's saying the legal theory is that these people conspired to lie about Russiagate, steal the 2020 election, 3 or 4 other things that are piled in there. It's all the same people, all one conspiracy, right? And it's situated in Florida. And I guess you saw there was a ruling yesterday about what jurisdictions you can use to charge people, right? There was a case out west where a guy did his crime in Seattle and they charged him in San Francisco, and the court said you can't do that. They threw out the charges that were that involved. But So the thing that holds all this together is the raid on Mar-a-Lago. So that's why it's in the Southern District of Florida. That's why it's all before Eileen Cannon, who was his, the judge in the Jack Smith, the documents case down there. And they have, in that case, it's before grand jury. We should see indictments in the next couple of 3 weeks, I would think. It's been going on a long time. A lot of people, but that'll involve intel people, could involve President Obama himself, Brennan, Clapper, all those guys, plus election chicanery. They supposedly have Maduro and Maduro's bookkeeper who paid all these people, to throw the elections or whatever. I mean, I'm just telling you, none of this has been proven. It's just the reporting is saying is coming out of this. And so they have like who got paid and what they got paid for and so forth from Maduro. So supposedly they can control our voting totals from Venezuela. So if all this is provable and doable, that's a wild card in this election that no one can, you can't even begin to guess at the effect of it.
Yeah, well, I'll wait for hard evidence on that. I just there's lots of stuff that goes down out there. As you've been talking, though, I've been noodling in my head about voting and things like this, and I would appreciate if you had to have proof of citizenship for voting. And the technology exists. It might be expensive to implement it at first, but I think it'll be worth it. Where you when you get your driver's license or whatever, you've got to have your papers or whatever, your proof of your citizenship. Those of us that were born here, this is not going to be that hard. This is not going to be that big a deal. But to me, the technology exists where all of this information can be embedded in your federal ID or your driver's license. And I was trying to make it somewhat akin to going to Costco these days, or as I came back into the country from our overseas trip using Global Entry. These things are easy. Your Costco, they've had my picture on file for years. They take your picture once and it's always in their database and it's attached to the card. But, we now scan a Costco card at the entrance. It reads whether or not you've got you are a member, and then if you're going there at 9 o'clock, whether or not you're the executive member, the guys who've paid a little extra, to go in an hour early, and so and that's a real basic level of information they have. I mean, they can say, oh look, you've been a member for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. That information the person at the door can see, and in Global Entry, it's remarkably easy to come back into the country. If you have Global Entry, you as you land and whatnot, you open up their app, you follow the instruction, which is really very easy in terms of like where you're coming from and things like that. And then you take a picture, and you can have your family all in the same entry card in a sense, so you're not doing it manually. And you take selfies, boom, boom, it's on file, and as you approach the Global Entry area where the Border Patrol people are, the immigration officers are, they basically like, okay, they know your name. They go like, and then just wave you right through. And I would love to see a way. And I realize this is kind of tricky because you've got to get the technology, and you've got polling places that are not, secure facilities per se. They're in schools and whatnot. They're there for just a short period of time, and then they pack up and go. But if you could get information embedded into your national ID, and then you have a scanner at the beginning, and then you have verified poll workers that basically good, all right, fine, get in this line, and that you actually have somebody that says, okay, you go to that line and you go pick up your ballot and you go. That is already prepped because they know you're here, and they just basically are calling you, boom, go, and move you through, because all that information has been verified. Nobody has to question, the monkey business and stuff like that. Now you have to trust the technology, and it needs to be nationwide, as well. So that's a whole nother can of worms. whether or
Yeah,
not you
'cause
could
most
do
of
that.
what you have, what you're talking about, we have in Virginia. I mean, it says it on your license, and it's a real ID, and you know,
That's true. That's true. I mean, we have real ID too. That's true. You already have given a lot of information for real ID. That's true. And so why not? I mean, you know, you can your driver's license, at least mine. I think most of them do. They have a stripe, a bar on the back of which when your bank will take that, when they say, oh, by the way, your driver's license is expired, I need your new one. They take it and then they just run it through and it updates their database automatically. They're not typing things in. It's based pulled all the information and updated their database, populated whatever they need to populate, and says, okay, now we have the new expiration date and whatever that we need. You're fine. So we know that there's ways of doing that. So why can't you either use it like a credit card and swipe it through or scan it or whatever, and you're then become the verified voter of some sort, and you do that. I mean, look, Georgia's had voter ID for a long time, and they operate just fine, right? I mean,
we've had it longer than anybody. We were the first ones to have it.
And Democrats have been, they always just wail about that. It's disenfranchisement, and all this stuff.
No, we've had it before anybody in Virginia. Because 14 of the 19 guys on 9/11 had Virginia driver's license. So
I remember. I know when Virginia went to the more secure license. I mean, Mal Klein, he was the only Virginian I knew of that went through that at the time. But he had to get a new license. He got it, and so they gave him something in between, I guess, that verified in case he needed it, because they were going to mail it to him. The license was no longer processed at the DMV, kind of thing like that. Where you used to be able to get it right away. It now was at a secure location that actually gave you that real ID or whatever, and then you got it in the mail. So that became until that time. I only think it took less than a week, I think, probably to mail it to them on the average. So it was a pretty quick process. So people rail about all these things, but they're for our protection. They're good for us in the long run. And it still comes back to the fact is we've got to move. As much as I have taken advantage of mail-in voting, we have got to move back to election day and not election month, or weeks or whatever.
Right.
That's right. This is what.
So that day, they've taken a step there. The courts have also supported Trump administration saying no ballots accepted after election day.
Right. I mean, that's right. We're seeing more progress in. It's like, at least if they have to have the ballots in their hands on election night by midnight or whatever like that, that is a step in the right direction. Now we've got to kind of, take that genie and put it back in the bottle and go back to where we were before, because COVID was really kind of expanded a lot of this, and it was never meant to be permanent.
Right.
I mean, we had a pandemic and we had all these crazy rules, and therefore the only way we're going to vote was purely by mail. But then the jurisdictions, like California, everybody in the state gets a ballot. Come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
I mean, in Maryland, we have to apply to become a permanent, mail-in voter, and I've done that. But I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, I've done it because I'm lazy. But if they took that away and said, we're going back to the old system where you have to go to the polling place and vote, and if you want an absentee ballot, you've got to fill out an application in advance and tell us why. That's fine.
Right.
I am
the thing about that flows through all this, though, is like you got to do it in every state.
Yeah, and every state is running.
You don't have any nexus over state and local elections, but you do over federal elections. The federal government can put all kind of rules on how federal officers are elected. So, and I think they should. I think those people need to be citizens, and the people who voting in these elections need to be citizens. Yeah,
because I mean, like Tacoma Park, Maryland, and a lot of other these things. Decades ago, they opened up voting to non-citizens, basically.
Non-citizens, 16-year-olds. There was something else. There was three.
They did all kinds of crazy stuff. So
then they have the Free Burma Committee.
Yeah, and it's like
it's a nuclear-free zone.
We're not going to be able to. If they're going to do that, local elections, whatever. I mean, the more important elections are the federal elections and national elections. And you know, we have so many elected offices in this country. You can't just, you know, put it on everybody, right? I mean, you just can't do the same thing. And hold on for a second here. I hope my wife is paying attention. What's going on here? Oh, okay. I thought someone was coming to the house. She's leaving the house. I'm expecting somebody. She's off to Hobby Lobby. Okay. This is an interjection here at this point in time. You know, they opened up a Hobby Lobby 8 miles away from my house. Instead of being 30 miles away, this is my death knell.
Nothing good can happen to your pocketbook there.
They opened up like on June 5th. I know that's where she's going because she mentioned she needed to get something. This is going to be her third trip to that store since June 5th. It's the 17th.
So you're on a once every 4 days pace.
Yeah, this is like, okay, you know, yeah, it was fine. I mean, the thing is, it's like, I'm fine with it because, you know, in the larger scheme of things, it's like, if I'm going to support businesses, I want to support businesses like Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A that have conservative Christian values. You know, they don't open on Sunday and they drive the liberals crazy, right? Yeah, and they have stuff. They have things that people actually like, and so they're going to be fine, even though the liberals are being like, "Oh, I'll never go there, never shop there." It's like, yeah, but if you're into arts and crafts and certain other things, you've only got that in Hobby Lobby and Michaels, and Hobby Lobby's is very different. They have stuff that is not carried at the other store. So, you know, you may find yourself being forced to do that, you know. So there's a lot of hypocritical thinking and talk with the Democrats, you know. Oh, I'm not ever going to shop there. I'm never going to work there, and then they wind up doing it just the same. All right, okay. So I blew my wad there or whatever. So I'm going to keep going here because I'm running low on time. Georgia runoff. Trump's endorsed candidate there for the Senate one. He endorsed the lieutenant governor in Georgia, and he did not win. I don't know what Collins's chances are against Ossoff. You know, I mean, Georgia to me is still winnable. It's just that, you know, after we kind of blew it a few years ago, it became more competitive. Obviously, the Democrats are somewhat entrenched, but, you know, neither Ossoff, you know, I mean, Ossoff is not a great candidate. You know,
he's rated the most vulnerable Democrat. Collins is he's a Trump acolyte. He's a sharp guy. He was he was one of those guys at House when he was in the House. Like his hearings were explosive. He got the right answers out of the people and so forth. So if they could get him in here, it would be a plus. I think that the cutting down on the cheating is really going to hurt in Georgia. Remember that, you know, Fulton County was a machine that was able to produce enough votes legally or illegally to get anybody they wanted elected basically in 2020. And that's been shut down. There'll be elections in Fulton County this year, and they'll be run by Democrats. But all the, you know, pulling the ballots out of from under the table late at night and all that stuff will not be able to happen because they're being watched to a level that they were not watched before. And, you know, the uncreased paper and the mail-in envelopes and all this stuff, you know, they got caught pretty thoroughly. And no one's, you know, they're just now getting around to charging people. They've charged a couple of people with various things, and they brought a bunch more people in for questioning in the last few weeks. But, you know, it's been established that there was a lot of voter fraud in Georgia. And so that you know, presumably will have to occur at much lower levels this time, which does help Collins. But he is not the most dynamic candidate. You know, he's not. You know, I wish he was, but he's not. And it'll be a fight to the finish. And it'll be, you know, it's basically the Atlanta area against the rest of the state. And unfortunately, you know, it's going to be like Chicago. That may be enough to win. So we'll see. You know, but I'm hopeful for that one. But I'm not driven over the cliff by optimism yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think Derek Dooley, just his persona, might have been a little better. I mean, he has, so when you get these football people in there, these sports people in there, sometimes that people will gravitate towards that. I mean, you don't have to have political experience necessarily to win a race for that, and you can get in there and be somewhat competitive. Um, but yeah, so it is what it is. Trump has a very firm imprint on these elections, and we won't know until November, with some of these bigger races, how much he affected that in terms of did we keep seats? Did we win seats that we didn't? We flipped things that we didn't have before. We shall see. But obviously, keeping control of Congress and the Senate are paramount to Trump's agenda for the last 2 years of his term. So we'll have to see where we go there. So we had the big UFC kind of cage fight thing at the White House. People tried to sue and shut it down. Celebrate his 80th birthday. He's a big fan. He's a big friend with Dana White at the UFC. But then we find out that there was this potential, threat of these drones going out there and firing away and dropping things. Now, it's still sketchy from what I can see that there may have been as many as 19 people involved. These young people. The FBI apparently was tipped off by a mother who was concerned about her son spending some of his graduation money on vests and weapons, other things, drones, all these kind of things. Now, as far as they've charged 5 people so far. It seems to JD said I heard that he said it wasn't really well put together. I mean, it wasn't likely to have been pulled off. These are kids that had some issue with, like the Epstein files, don't trust government, and a bunch of other things, and it would have been difficult to pull off. But it does lead to the question of just drones. I mean, there's a widespread use of drones around the world, and we're seeing a lot of that used in warfare, in Russia, and Ukraine. There's a lot of neat things you can do with drones, light shows and kind of things like this. But I mean, how do you protect this airspace around the White House, or somebody starts sending in drones? Apparently, I guess they had some other drones already, kind of as anti, counter that could take countermeasures and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, drones are relatively cheap, so it's not hard to do this. But I don't know. I've never operated a drone, so I don't really know everything about the technology. But this has become one of those potential problem issues. When we're trying to keep secure places. I don't know.
This is why we need the ballroom, right? This is why that was absolutely the right thing to do.
Wait a minute. Were they going to put the cage? If they was the ballroom, would they have had the match inside the ballroom? You think?
Yeah, probably so.
That's interesting.
I don't know about this particular occasion, but the point is this. So when they have a state dinner at the White House, they have to build tents.
Right.
They're literally held in tents, cloth tents. So, if you had 50 drones and you let them out at Gravelly Point down there by the airport, and no one, you fly low over the Potomac, you're on the White House before the cops could know about it, right? And all these people are in tents that those drones could easily shoot through, right? All those people would be in danger. You could wipe out, hundreds of people at a state dinner, and all you have to do to protect it is to have a ballroom in the White House big enough to do it, right? And that's all he's trying to do. And so you don't have to, someone pointed out yesterday, well, the Pentagon has ballrooms and people like places like that. I'm like, well, yeah, but then you have to move him to the Pentagon, right? There's that's a bunch of other enormous risk, right? And you're letting a bunch of people into the Pentagon that you really don't want going around.
Oh yeah, the security level there is way off the charts. Yeah. You are not going to have an event like that there.
Right. I mean, it used to be you could go through, you could walk all through it. And I took a tour that, back in the early 80s. They just walked us all around, showed us everything. But it's not that. And we used to park when I first moved up here, we would park at the Pentagon and like get on the metro and go into town.
Yeah.
You know, that does not happen anymore. So, just randos from Louisiana, So, but they need a way to protect these people so they can have these. The world's gotten angrier. Trump has made these people crazy, whether it's his fault or their fault or whatever, you can decide that amongst yourselves. But, he's made these people nuts. Like they've tried to kill him. They've tried to hurt him in every way they could. They're you don't even want to discuss anything with him. It's just complete meanness and hostility in every way. Like you can't trust those people. And drones is a technology like we will be where we can defend against it pretty effectively, but we're not there yet. And if you're putting all those people on the White House grounds like that, you're asking for trouble. And they could easily be overwhelmed with drones before anybody detects the drones and does anything to stop them. So I've been all for building this. I thought it was brilliant that he got private companies to pay for it because you're going to get the gilded, he's building up zillionaire stuff for him, doesn't care about us arguments. And it's been handy to be able to say, no, it's built with private money, which it is. And it has been it is absolutely critical that they get that done. All
right. Once again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about just something that I'm surprised Trump hasn't done. I'm proposing this to President Trump right now. So if you've already proposed the ballroom, that's fine. But I'm surprised that you have not proposed a retractable golden dome, and they're in the ground like the bollards are. And when you need it, you hit the buttons or whatever, and you just cover the White House. A nice day, open it up a little bit, but then you can close it right away. If there's a threat, close it up. You become secure and everything like that. And you paint it gold. It's in your Trump colors. Why not? Little Trump lights on it. Why not? Yeah. Hey, look, to me, anything is possible with Trump, right? This whole everything. I don't get surprised at anything Trump does anymore. But yeah. I mean, there's a good reason to have a ballroom because if you're going to have a state dinner and things like this, why is it any part of it outside? You make these people pass through security, keep them in a secure place.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just kind of bonkers.
Walls around them.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about gas prices. The petroleum reserve, they said, is at its lowest level since 1983. Hopefully, we can get that back up and going.
Perfect time for that.
Yeah.
As oil is crashing.
That'll be good. I mean, it's
to refill it.
Yeah, I'm glad that. We need to boost that back up. So the other big story this past week too was Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire. His IPO of SpaceX went off marvelously well. Stock has had like three up days in a row now, and so the company's worth more on the stock exchange now. It in just a few days has already surpassed like Amazon and I think Microsoft. It's just crazy. I think it's way ahead of itself. The market's ahead of its skis on this, but that's what happens. It's Elon attracts a lot of attention. But what I love about this whole thing in the end is just that the liberals, their heads have exploded. It's
been a real Rorschach test, right? Because like the right's like, man, that's a heck of an achievement. Look at all the stuff he invented. Look at the 150,000 people he has working for him. I remember them making this argument about the Kochs, like, whatever you think of the Kochs, they employ 78,000 people. This is twice that, right? And his salaries are always at the top edge of the bracket of whatever he's hiring for, right? He's one of the highest paying employers out there, and he has multiple employees and multiple businesses, and he's still getting wildly rich. And they just hate it. They just hate that he had success. And they're like, how he could have spent that money on this. He could have spent that money. Have you spent any of your money on that? Well, no. So it's his job to cover up for all the problems in the world, but not yours, right? You have no responsibility. And all these tax the rich. If only we tax the rich. Half the people in the country don't pay any income tax. Why don't we tax them, right? You're like, oh, it's horrible. They're poor, okay? Well, they'll quit voting for people who vote to waste money if they're the ones actually paying the money, right? And then further of that aim, quit withholding it from our paychecks. Give me my whole paycheck. Send me a bill from the IRS every month. Stroke the IRS a check every month so you can see exactly what you're paying them, how much of what you make goes to these people. And, you will have a country full of citizens really seriously scrutinizing the spending. And you won't have a heck of a lot of waste yet left because people won't stand for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, I mean, here's the other thing too is that, as a result of SpaceX going public, there are a lot of his employees that became instant millionaires, right?
That's right.
And that
editors, not even
there's
high-rated people.
Anybody who had any kind of interest in the company, any shares in the company, basically made just on paper they just became
virtually all of them because he's always paid people and he's always offered stock options.
Right. So which is what you do when you're in that venture capital area, is that you're awarding stock options and things like that, so that the employees hope that you go public. And and then when you do, if you actually get to that point, you've hit the jackpot. If you don't, that's that's fine, I guess. But there's that's part of the American dream for a lot of people, is that, oh, look at this. And Elon has been just absolutely brilliant about forming businesses, and just how he has managed to do this. So more just for me, it's just more kudos for him. All right, the last few quickie things here. I had to say this: Toy Story 5's coming out on Friday, I guess it is. I'm amazed. Okay, the first Toy Story came out in 1995. I don't recall an animated movie having five movies over a period of 31 years. Usually they're a lot closer together if they're doing that at all. Like, I think, like the Minions thing or whatever. I think they've had several, but they tend to be a lot closer. And there hasn't been a Toy Story, for like 7 years. And so you still have Tim Allen and Tom Hanks and these people still voicing them. It was one of the most endearing animated things I'd seen produced by Pixar/Disney. So I'll probably, if it comes out on streaming, and if I still have my streaming subscription, I'll probably watch it. I'm not going to go to the theater for it. They generally are they've been pretty feel good. But if I denote any PC wokeness in there, that'll be the end of it. But I may, maybe MRC will be following through and checking that out, because it's still Disney.
Yeah, that's right.
The Knicks won the NBA title. Amazing. Okay. Not a real New York guy, but I think there's a great story there. They went 16-3 to get there. Jalen Brunson, MVP. Knicks fans have been starved, forever. The Spurs will probably have their moment in the sun at some point in time, and they'll probably be able to
probably
claim
in the
that.
not too distant future either.
Yeah, not with that. As long as they keep that nucleus together, they're going to be good. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I thought it was a great story. Nevertheless, the Knicks were just amazing through the playoffs.
Came from 29 down to win a game or whatever it was.
Oh gosh, yeah. The whole kind of the tip in, Yeah. I mean, they didn't win by the big scores as they had previous to the finals, but you don't have to. You just have to win, and they did.
Right, and they did.
And so
it's a team, not really, galactic stars. They need all those people to do well.
Yeah, right. That's right. I mean, I don't know that people will look back upon this and will be able to remember the names of these people on this team as much as they do of, say, Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, that kind of thing like that. You have people on, from the 73 Knicks that are legendary. I don't know that any of these players will ever be legendary to that extent.
Right.
But they won a championship, so more power to them, and their coach. So great job for that. U.S. men's national team won their first game against Paraguay, so that's great for that. They're not going to go deep into the World Cup unless something miraculous happens.
Yeah, I don't know if people get over their skis right after one game, But I read 2 or 3 different soccer, and I don't know anything about soccer, who said, don't count them out, right? This is a different, they're at a different level vis-a-vis the other teams than they've ever been before, that they actually could stand up to them. So, it'll be interesting to see. I have no idea if that's true. I'm just telling you what I did see. So,
yeah, I mean, they have a new coach, right? And so they have a different style. And the one thing is that they scored more goals in that game than they ever had before, right?
right.
So you kind of, you thought, all right, Paraguay is not the best team in the world, but they're decent. They're pretty decent.
Yeah, they're not usually the worst either.
They beat some good teams to get there to the World Cup. So I don't know. I mean, if the other teams falter a little bit and they get out of the group stage, we'll get to see a little bit more of the medal. I mean, getting the group stage here generally usually not as challenging unless you get a very tough group, and they don't have a very tough group necessarily. But if they get to the next level, then we're going to be able to see a lot more of how they're doing. But there've been great stories. The 40-year-old goalie out of Cape Verde. It's great to see these kinds of things. So I'm not a soccer fan. I don't have great knowledge about soccer. I have a hard time watching soccer and then the whole extra time thing and all that stuff. It's like, what are we doing?
Get your time straight. First of all, the clock counts down, not up.
Yeah.
And second of all, when you stop for injury, you turn off the clock. And because that, you just turn it back on. Like every other sport has figured this out. But you guys, just keep us guessing. Can you coach when you don't know when the game's going to end?
Yeah, and
you're just sort of guessing.
And I think the substitutions are very limited. You can, and things like that too. So you can't go in there with the strategy of like hockey always is changing lines and stuff like that. You don't have that in soccer. You can make certain changes, but then then that's it. So people love it. That's fine. I know Spencer loved it. And we've got teams, soccer teams, professional teams in the United States that seem to be doing very well and draw, good crowds. So it's fascinating to see it on our home turf at this point in time. So it's going to probably bring us a lot of economic benefit to boot. And then finally, this interesting story about how some Giants players on their San Francisco Giants, but on their pride hats wrote Bible verses. For which
they did not wear pride hats. They wore their own caps and put the.
They wore their own cap. Okay, so they wore their own caps on Pride Night.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was there's a correction to the way it was originally reported. Then good, but so they did this. MLB did not take kindly to this, right?
Right. Senator Hawley sent MLB a letter saying, "We want to know why you're religious discriminating against these athletes." So. There's forces pushing back this way too. So
and we talked about Pride the thing last. It's Pride Month, right? So we still may have another story or two before the month is over, but it is we're seeing fewer of these across professional sports. They backed off a little bit in terms of dealing with anything with this, and now we're seeing pushback by the athletes and others about doing this. It's like good, because why are we doing this to begin with?
That's right. Why would we do this to begin with?
Yeah. What does this have to do with
baseball? If you want to do it, okay, that's fine. You have your Pride Night, and but forcing the players to take part of it is immoral.
Right.
Right. Yeah. They may not go for that, and they shouldn't be forced to.
All right, we got through a lot of stuff. Great show. Bob must be on vacation. Missed his comments. Anyway, as always, please everyone stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we're moving closer to our 250th birthday, so that'll be quite a day. All right, everyone. Good to see you, and we'll see you again next week.